excited to go right after you. Thanks for that presentation, Day. It was really good. And this is kind of the first time I'm giving this particular presentation, so please forgive my brief slide surgery here. Okay. So I'm actually on this panel, I think in part because I had another project that I'm not going to talk about called Occupy Here, which is a private room-sized offline network. And it's really simple. It's just a website that lives on a hacked Wi-Fi router. You log into the Wi-Fi router, and you can communicate with other people in the room on something that's disconnected, very much like a micro version of the Red Hook network. So instead, I'm going to talk a lot about like that sense of anxiety that comes from not knowing how the data is being handled and what we should do about that. That pair of boots or whatever that follow you around after you search for them. So this is a Medium post by a French gentleman who was hiking in the mountains and had his phone in low battery mode and experienced this thing that maybe some of you have heard of or experienced firsthand, which is the phone seemingly recorded a conversation and then showed him marketing afterwards for the product that he was talking about. In this case, it was some kind of micro presentation projector, I should say. This is how it looked on Instagram. He wrote about this. He's an engineer. He kind of dissected like how the technology might work. He's very convinced that his phone was spying on his conversation. Hiking in the mountains, like no connectivity. It's really bizarre. And then in his follow-up post, he wrote, education is the real long-term cure for the problem. When someone is on the point to post something weird on social networks, even in private, just ask them if they're ready to handle the probability this content will be public. And to me, this sounds like capitulation. Like, I don't think we should censor ourselves in these situations. I think it's important to resist that impulse. And certainly education is an important factor, but we should post weird stuff on social media in private. Like, this is an important part of being human, I think. And kind of related to this, a podcast that I like called Reply All was soliciting stories about people who've experienced this very thing. And they had people call in. And just today, they released the episode that's about this effect. And I mean, it's interesting. You should listen to it. Of course, this is about Facebook spying on you, and of course, they have a Facebook tracker on the webpage. I should write in and complain about this, I think. Plug for Privacy Badger. It's a way to like see when there's things embedded in the page HTML that are spying on you. And a big part of this episode was the host talking to the audience and listening to their explanation of what happened, of this this possibility that the microphone was enabled and secretly capturing their conversations. And he was playing the skeptic in this conversation. And he was trying to explain how an alternate explanation might convince them otherwise, might make them feel safer about their phones not actually recording it. You know, it was actually some big data connect the dots thing with someone you know who searched for the thing, et cetera. But to me, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if there's actual spying and microphone activation going on. If somebody catches, a packet trace of, audio going across their network and, Facebook, I caught you. Like, that doesn't matter to me. To me, it's like, it's the uncertainty of it being a possibility that makes it real, that makes us change our behaviors, that makes us think twice about what we're saying in the presence of all these devices that are everywhere. And so the uncertainty is the problem to me. It's that sense of like, maybe this is plausible. And that we've seen that since all the stuff that's been going on with NSA disclosures, et cetera. And it's not new. This is stuff that's been happening for a long time. This is a story, I think the byline is from 2015. This is the NYPD posing as people's friends on Facebook, and based on private posts and likes, arresting people, like doing these in some cases, like 30, I think, teenagers at one public housing location were arrested in one shot. In another case, a mistranslation of good morning got someone arrested in Israel. And this is based on a lot of different factors, but one of the factors is that people were primed to mistrust an Arab Jew. And so it's not just the algorithms, but the algorithms are kind of amplifying societal effects. I actually forgot what all these stories were. I think this is a recent one. Oh, yes. So, of course, we're hearing a lot about how Facebook had lots of ads affecting the last election. It turns out that it's actually causing possible genocide in other parts of the world. There's when you spread these communication technologies and don't properly police them, there's real bad effects that we've seen in other media, like radio can sometimes also cause these kinds of genocides. So it's not just about tech, it's not just about Silicon Valley. The societies that these things come out of are already biased. And I think the algorithms are amplifying that bias. And of course, this isn't something that I'm inventing. I'm just collecting a lot of anxiety into a slide deck. So bear with me, it gets better. So of course, people are doing research on identifying identity through photos. Turns out the mask that you wear to the protest isn't going to help. This is something that Twitter suggested to me. It's like, be the police for Halloween. Your kid can be the police. In China, there's like this new credit system, in part based on how compliant you are, they don't have a functioning credit system. And so Alibaba, as a big tech provider in China, is creating kind of it's called the Sesame social credit score. And in part, one of the problems with its design is that how your friends are performing in the system affects your credit score. So it has this weird social effect where you may want to distance yourself from someone with a bad credit score. And it takes into account like speech. So you can't post things online and not expect to be hurt, like if you want to get a job or whatever. I think these are all, these chilling effects, this tendency to create compliant populations, this is all designed into these systems. And it's something that I think we should be working against. And of course, you may have seen this. Mark Zuckerberg visited through the magic of VR, Puerto Rico, flooding. This is mid-high five. This is another Facebook thing from a long time ago. I even forget the details, but it's like a year ago. Everyone died, apparently. So this one, just delete your Facebook already, please. Back the data up first. I did this recently, and I hesitated for a long time. This is what it looks like. You click on something. I think it's over in the corner, that little arrow. Download your stuff first. This is the page. Insert your own snarky comment as you're leaving. And then, you deactivate it. They hold the data, of course. They keep it around indefinitely, I'm sure. But so I think this is something that more of us should do. I think I know that not everyone has the privilege of just opting out. But if you can, you should. This is my basic point. And I've done it, and I don't feel bad about it one bit. I'm maybe less able to spread my own political ideas through the network, and that's my loss. But it's something that I think I should work on. I think I should work on alternatives, and I'm trying to live that through just pushing away things that I think are bad in my life, technology-wise. And one of those things is I stopped using a smartphone. And in part, it's like, it's cheaper. It gets me accustomed to the idea that you can live in modern society without a data plan. It imposes these new challenges. Like, for example, my phone doesn't know about smart quotes and actually will chop off the message if it includes a smart quote. And I learned iOS 11 now by default makes all those apostrophes nice and curly, properly. causing this kind of thing where I now can't communicate with my dad without talking about how to reconfigure his phone, which is a great conversation to have. So I'm working on this stuff. I'm writing code to work around this. This is actually some code that translates text messages on the way in and replaces all the smart quotes and replaces all the emojis and downloads all the photos, like does all the things that like a smartphone does. Yeah, question. Yeah.
I'm an adjunct life science professor and I also work in the public school system. I'm like, these students, some of my students, they talk, what you're talking about, the police caught them making threats against the police, they make threats against each other, and they make threats against teachers. They tell them to behave themselves, you need to learn math, science. Why isn't there some kind of feedback loop somewhere on the computer to tell the kid you shouldn't put this stuff online to threaten anybody? I mean, I've been in the lab, if you're doing something wrong, there's a feedback loop telling you the equipment's malfunctioning, about to blow up or something. But chemical equipment especially. I just like kids, they think they can just put anything up there. I mean, the police can see it. I have a cousin that's a police officer.
Yeah.
They should know that this is wrong.
Sure.
And I'm just saying, like, if you're going to do this, something should be built into Facebook. What you're doing is wrong, take it down. I'm not a computer person, but they talk about AI, artificial intelligence. Where's it tell something to tell a student? The parent's not telling, this is wrong, put this up here.
Yeah, I don't know how much of the feed caught all that, and I don't know if I should summarize the whole thing, but I think that's an important point. I guess, I know we're going to talk Q&A later probably, but I think my first reaction is definitely shouldn't be the NYPD who are like held responsible for policing this stuff. But yeah, I think part of it is like, I don't know, not being, yeah. Yeah.
I mean, go fight at 3 o'clock, this kind of nonsense.
There's certainly, I mean, I'm of the opinion that I think there's speech acts that are legal but unethical that are permitted, especially on social networks that don't want to be held legally responsible. And there should be greater responsibility. I'm not sure how to design that, but I think you're right. I think the technologies are failing in a certain way there. So yeah, I think I'm trying to live in this world of like, I graduated from college somewhere around that peak, and I feel like, Web 2.0 is gone. All the optimism about techno-utopianism. This is a Google visualization of the frequency of the word increasingly in books, and increasingly has dropped off. We're increasingly not using increasingly. We're in this sort of like bad future. We're on the like terrible timeline. And like you want the jetpack not to do like futurist stuff, but like to like escape all the terrible stuff. And you may remember there were these instances of like in Turkey during the Gezi protests, the Gezi Park protests, sharing the IP address of a DNS server so that you could escape the network censorship that was happening in Turkey. This is the future that's coming to us. I mean, not to be Chicken Little, but in Spain there's internet censorship. They're an EU country. It's not hard to believe that we will maybe need to memorize these numbers and have spray paint handy for that future. But I do want to build towards something better. I don't want to just flap my arms and say it's all terrible. And so here's where I reveal my new project called Small Data. Small Data is something that I started a couple years ago, and it's been very slow to get off the ground. I gave a talk at Radical Networks, I guess it was like 2 times ago, and a friend, Caroline Cinders, came up to me and we had a short conversation, and then we kept talking about it. And this is kind of where it is now. It's a website. It's some prototypes. Like this is a prototype that I use for mapping. So it turns out if you don't have a smartphone, getting around is hard. So I'm trying to do that without Google's assistance as much as I can. And it helps that I work at a mapping company. Here's where I should mention I work at MapZen, and this is all MapZen stuff. And basically this is all my, this is living on my hardware, and it's software that I wrote using libraries that are open source. And I've basically kept my data off of Google entirely. And I write down when I'm going somewhere, and I have to plan to get places, but it is possible. It's possible to live without all this stuff. We have a presence on GitHub. So far, it's like me and a few other people involved. So in short, like this is like tools and collaborators for getting your stuff off the cloud, other people's computers, as it's known, and paying for it. You know, like I pay a little bit extra so that I can host data off my home internet connection. And I have access to internet through a good ISP. I live upstate in Troy, New York. I actually just moved up there recently. There's a company called Massive Mesh that offers commercial ISP using mesh radios, and it's not, you know, one of the big Spectrum or whatever, Verizon, et cetera. So I try to use these local options when I can. I'm building new software and services. I'm trying to make it easier for other people to do the same, because I don't want it just to be for tech people. I think that being a tech person is basically just knowing the right buttons to push, and I want to teach more people how to push the right buttons in the right order. So I'm looking into like how can I, you know, bring people up who are beginners, and you know, the part-time, full-time job thing is definitely something I want to do. Building for low cost, making all the stuff like really cheap to run yourself. These are all goals, and ultimately operate this as a platform cooperative. And this is an idea where, you know, there's no venture capital investment. It's not a typical tech company arrangement. I'm basically sharing the costs and the profits with the other workers in the cooperative. We're not technically, we don't have bylaws and incorporation. I'm talking to what's a law clinic about actually forming officially. Until then, I'm not officially a cooperative, so I put that in parentheses. Like, the other cooperatives can technically sue me if I present myself as a cooperative. Anyway, so future platform cooperative. And if you're interested, like, send me an email. I'm happy to share what I know. And I'm actually, I'd be really interested to talk to Red Hook Initiative people too, because I think there's a lot of overlap with what I want to be doing. So, thanks. I'm just going to set my timer so I don't